A group of 5 urban legend researchers, Lena, the group leader with a sense of adventure, Mark, the cameraman obsessed with documenting every moment, Ivy, a paranormal investigator and believer in the supernatural, Victor, a hardcore skeptic who loves to disprove anything he considers nonsense, and Tara, a history student fascinated by dark tales from the past, arrive at the abandoned mental hospital. The building, located on the edge of a forest, looks sinister and dilapidated, with crumbling walls and rusty gates that creak open, as if inviting visitors inside. Tara tells them the history of the asylum as they stand in front of the gates, illuminated by flashlight beams. It was shut down 50 years ago, she says, her gaze fixed on the rusted sign hanging above the entrance. 10 patients and several staff members disappeared. No one ever found them. According to the legend, they used to conduct experimental treatments in the so-called void room. Patients claim to have seen the void, an endless place where time stops. Just story, mutters Victor, but his voice sounds uncertain. Lena decisively cuts through the tension. Let's go in. We've got all night. Mark raises his camera and begins filming, capturing every step as the group crosses the threshold, unaware of the horrors waiting inside. Inside the abandoned hospital, each step echoes eerily as the researchers carefully walk through the dark corridors, lit only by the beams of their flashlights. The walls are covered with layers of mold that seem to breathe, pulsating in rhythm with some unseen life, while cobwebs gather in the corners. The floor is slippery from moisture, and the smell of decay, old chemicals, and stale air fills their nostrils, creating a pressure in their chests. The hallways are cluttered with remnants of former hospital equipment, medical beds with tattered mattresses, old wheelchairs that creak when moved by the slightest breeze, and faded bandages hanging from shelves like phantom hands. As they move further, they notice something strange. The hallways seem much longer than they should be, as if the building stretches endlessly. The light from their lamps reaches the end of the hall, but as they approach, the end retreats further, pulling away from them. Lena stops and quietly speaks to them. Does anyone notice that the hallway is getting longer? Victor shakes his head, trying not to appear frightened, but soon everyone starts feeling the same discomfort. In one of the rooms down the hallway, they find eerie drawings on the walls, spirals that spin and radiate an unsettling energy, eyes that seem to follow them, and figures of vague shapes standing in the dark, silent witnesses to some long-forgotten horror. Ivy leans closer to one drawing and points her EMF meter at it, which suddenly starts producing strange sounds, irregular jerks and static noises, as if something is trying to speak through the device. Lena notices an old metal door with a faded sign reading, "Void Room, No Entry." "This must be it," she whispers. Mark raises the camera and starts filming the door, while Lena tries to open it, but it is firmly locked. Its cold surface feels unnaturally icy under her fingers. Frustrated, they decide to go upstairs. The staircase creaks under their steps, but as they climb, something feels wrong. Each step seems to sink deeper, as if leading them somewhere they didn't intend to go. When they finally reach the top floor, the hallways ahead of them seem endless, long, dark, and filled with doors leading to rooms that shouldn't exist. "This is not normal," mutters Ivy. "The building isn't this big." They try to turn back, but when they head down the stairs, they realize with horror that the door they entered through is no longer there. In front of them is just another hallway, empty, silent, and infinite. The group slowly begins to panic as the eerie reality of the abandoned hospital seeps under their skin. Every hallway looks the same. Doors appear and disappear, and the space changes as if the hospital has a will of its own. "This is impossible," mutters Lena, trying to stay calm, though her voice trembles. Mark looks for an exit, but instead notices something even stranger. "Guys, look at this," he says, raising his wrist to show them his watch. The hands on the watch are moving backward, slowly but steadily. Tara, panicking, pulls out her phone to check the time, but the screen doesn't show the usual home screen. Instead, she sees disconnected images, parts of the hospital corridors like the ones they just passed through, but with something different. In one image, she spots a dark figure standing in the corner of a room, motionless, with its head slightly bowed as if watching them. In the next image, she sees a close-up of a face that is not human, with its eyeballs completely filled with blackness. Tara shudders and quickly turns off the screen, but the feeling that they are being watched doesn't go away. As they continue to wander, trying to stay together, they suddenly hear sounds in the distance. Quiet at first, but becoming clearer. It initially sounds like the creaking of old chairs or doors opening, but then it becomes more distinct. Children's laughter. At first it seems like a distant echo, but it grows louder, as if coming from the walls around them. Lena turns to Ivy, her eyes wide with fear. "Someone's here with us." "No, that's not possible," answers Victor, trying to hold on to his skeptical stance, though his voice sounds unconvincing. Ivy, now deeply disturbed, suggests that they return to the ground floor. "We need to find a way back. Maybe we missed something." They all nod, relieved to have a plan, however unclear it might be. They head down the stairs, but as soon as they start, they realize something is wrong. The stairs feel endless, going deeper and deeper but never reaching the bottom. Instead, a new hallway suddenly appears in front of them. At first, it looks like part of the hospital, but as they move forward, they realize it is different. The walls are black, as if covered in soot, and red spirals are drawn on them, moving under the light of their flashlights. "This place isn't real," mutters Ivy, clutching her EMF meter, which starts beeping with irregular, unsettling tones. "I think we're not in the same building anymore." Tara is on the edge of tears, but Lena firmly pushes the group forward. "We have to keep going. We can't stay here." As they walk down this eerie hallway, the space around them begins to shift. The walls seem to stretch and contract, breathing in rhythm they can't explain. A soft, pulsating sound, almost like a heartbeat, comes from the floor itself. Lena thinks she sees someone standing at the end of the hallway, a dark figure with elongated features. She stops and stares into the distance, but when she blinks, the figure disappears, as if it was never there. "I saw someone," she whispers, but Victor shakes his head. "It's just your imagination." But as they continue down the hallway, they all feel the same, someone's presence, quiet, invisible, but always there, watching from the dark. The group finally reaches the door with the sign, "Void Room." The door is now unlocked. Though terrified, they feel an irresistible urge to enter. Once they step inside, the room feels endless, like a black void filled with floating hospital beds that appear and disappear. One by one, the group members begin to experience hallucinations. Lena sees her younger self, pleading for her not to leave anyone behind. Mark sees footage on his camera, showing the group entering the hospital, but at the end of the footage, he sees himself running through empty corridors. Ivy hears the voices of patients calling her name. Victor, the skeptic, sees figures in white hospital uniforms watching him from the dark, whispering, "You're next." Tara sees the walls of the void closing around her, while spirals on the walls slowly spin, creating a vortex. The group realizes they are trapped in the void, and there's only one way to escape. On the floor of the room, they find old medical documentation revealing that the void room experimented with soul transference. To leave, someone else must stay behind and take their place. A debate ensues. No one wants to stay behind. As they ponder possible solutions, a figure of one of the former patients appears from the dark and grabs Ivy. Lena tries to save her, but the figure vanishes with her into the black vortex. The rest of the group realizes they must sacrifice someone if they want to escape. At the last moment, Tara sacrifices herself, pulling herself into the vortex to allow the others to flee. Screaming, she disappears into the dark while the spirals on the walls stop spinning. Lena, Mark, and Victor manage to escape the hospital. When they step outside, they realize only 1 minute has passed since they entered, but it feels like they've been inside for hours. A few days later, Lena sits alone in her room, bathed only in the pale glow of her monitor as she reviews the footage Mark shot during their time in the abandoned hospital. The screen shows familiar scenes, their arrival at the rusted gates, the jokes and laughter that seemed so relaxed at first, then the silence that settled the moment they stepped inside the building. Every moment feels more chilling than it did live. The shadows deeper, the hallways more endless, and every sound, every whisper in the distance now eerily amplified. As Lena carefully rewinds the footage, trying to find a key detail that might explain what happened that night, she reaches the last few minutes of the tape, the moment when they finally escape the hospital. On the video, it's clearly visible as they exit through the dark doors, running toward the exit, exhausted but alive. For a moment, she feels relief. Everything seems normal until she notices something in the background. She slows the footage, holding her breath as she carefully watches the hallway behind her and the rest of the group. In the dark, barely visible at first, two figures are standing. Lena stares at the screen, not blinking as the image becomes clearer. Tara and Ivy. Their silhouettes stand motionless in the deep shadows of the hallway, but they are no longer her friends. Their eyes are empty, black, devoid of life. Their faces look waxy, frozen, like the faces of dolls, watching them with an ominous stillness. Lena feels her heart race. She rewinds the footage, hoping it's just a camera glitch, an optical illusion, something not real. But when she plays the tape again, Tara and Ivy are still there, standing motionless and silent, watching them as they flee the hospital. When the footage reaches the final frame, the moment when the three of them finally cross the threshold, the screen suddenly turns black. Lena jumps, but before she can do anything, a brief static noise fills the speakers. On the screen, a new frame appears, blurry and frozen, as if it comes from another time. Tara and Ivy, now much closer to the camera, standing motionless, with expressions that mix sadness and rage. Lena feels the chill creep up her spine. She quickly stops the tape and turns off the monitor, but the feeling still lingers. The feeling that someone is watching them. She glances at the door to her room, but in the dim light, she sees nothing. Yet the silence feels heavy, filled with something unsaid. Now she is certain. The story isn't over. They may have escaped the hospital alive, but they didn't leave alone. Something came with them, and Lena realizes that the past of the abandoned hospital hasn't let them go.